It's absolutely perfect out here.
I agree. What a beautiful afternoon for a walk.
The last thing Kayla ever said to me as my wife was, "I just need to feel attractive again, Tom." She said it while applying lipstick in the foyer mirror, the same mirror we'd hung together 17 years ago when we first bought the house on Elmwood Drive. The late afternoon sun sliced through the sidelight windows, catching the dust motes and the faint, frantic energy coming off her. She was wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, one that clung in a way her usual sweaters and jeans did not. It wasn't the dress that shattered me. It was the look in her eyes and the reflection, a determined, glittering selfishness that had completely erased the woman I knew. I stood by the stairs, my hand on the oak newel post I'd stripped and refinished the summer Carly was 5. My throat was a desert. Feeling attractive is one thing. Going on a date with another man is something else entirely, Kayla. It's a betrayal. It's a line. She snapped the cap on her lipstick, a sharp, final sound. It's one dinner. It's not a betrayal. It's an exploration. Clarence makes me feel seen. Clarence. I tasted the name, and it was bile. He was 28. A graphic designer at the ad agency where Kayla worked part-time as an office manager. I'd seen his Instagram, all artfully messy hair, ironic tattoos, and photos of craft cocktails. I see you. Every damn day for 17 years, I have seen you. You see the mom. You see the wife who does the laundry and remembers the dentist appointments. You don't see me. She turned from the mirror, finally facing me. Her face, still beautiful at 41, was set in a mask of petulant justification. You haven't looked at me like that in years. A white-hot wire of anger fused with the cold lead in my gut. So your solution is to go fuck a guy 10 years younger? That's your master plan for marital rejuvenation? Don't be crude. It's a dinner. But her eyes flickered away. She knew it was more. We both knew. If you walk out that door, I said, my voice dropping to a low, frayed register I didn't recognize, you are choosing to end our marriage. Do you understand that? This isn't a game. This is the foundation of everything. You break this, it doesn't get glued back together. For a second, a shadow passed over her face, a ghost of the girl I'd met in a college psychology class, the one who'd laughed so easily and held my hand during a scary movie. Then it was gone, replaced by the resolute stranger. You're being dramatic. I'll be home by 11. The sound of the door closing behind her was the quietest, most catastrophic sound of my life. It wasn't a slam. It was a soft, definitive click. A seal on a tomb. I stood there in the silent foyer, the house groaning around me like a living thing suddenly bereft of its spirit. I could hear the distant bass thump of music from Josh's room upstairs. Carly was at a friend's house studying. The normalcy of it was grotesque. Our family was a beautiful vase that had just been pushed off a shelf, and I was the only one who had heard it start to fall. The kids were still in the other room, oblivious to the shards gathering in the air. I didn't move for a long time. I watched the sunbeam crawl across the hardwood floor, over the braided rug Kayla's mother had made for us. I counted the ticks of the grandfather clock in the living room. Each tick was a heartbeat, a moment of my old life receding. The physical pain was astonishing. It was a vacuum in my chest, a cramping, hollow agony that made me want to fold in half. But worse was the mental cinema, the instant, unwelcome horror show of imagination, her laughing over wine, his hand on her lower back, the intimate lean-in across a table. The kiss goodnight. More. I walked into the kitchen, the scene of 1,000 family breakfasts, and poured a glass of water. My hand shook so violently the water slopped over the side. I saw the fridge, plastered with school calendars, a coupon for pizza, a photo from last summer's beach trip. All of it was now a museum exhibit. Life before the click. I waited. The waiting was a form of torture Whitman never described. I paced. I tried to watch TV, a blur of colors and noise. I picked up a book, but the words were meaningless glyphs. I went upstairs and stood in the doorway of our bedroom. Our bed, with its mismatched pillows and the quilt her grandmother had stitched. This felt like the greatest violation. This room was ours. It held the whispers of 1,000 conversations, the warmth of shared sleep, the silent comfort of just knowing the other body was there. It was no longer ours. It was just a room where she slept before going out to feel attractive with Clarence. At 11:07 p.m., I heard her key in the lock. My heart, which had been a numb, sluggish thing, suddenly jackhammered against my ribs. I was in the living room, sitting in the dark in my armchair. I didn't turn on a lamp. I wanted to see her enter her own home like a stranger. The door opened, and a sliver of streetlight cut across the floor. She stepped in, her silhouette hesitant. She smelled of night air, of a perfume I didn't recognize, of wine and someone else's cologne. She flicked on the foyer light and jumped when she saw me. "Tom. God, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Her hair was slightly mussed. The lipstick was gone. Her face was flushed, her eyes bright with a guilty, defiant energy. She had the decency to look away first. "How was your dinner?" I asked. My voice was flat, dead. "It was fine. Nice. We went to that new Italian place on Main." She was babbling, taking off her coat, avoiding my gaze. The osso buco was a bit oversalted, but the wine list was, "Did you fuck him?" She froze, one arm still in her coat sleeve. "Tom. It's a simple question. A yes or no question. Did you have sexual intercourse with Clarence tonight? That is none of your business." The defiance was back, chin up. I stood up. The movement felt robotic. "You made it my business the second you left this house. Did you fuck him?" Tears sprang to her eyes, but they were tears of anger, not remorse. "You don't own me. You don't get to interrogate me. I am a person, with needs, and you have ignored them for years." That was the script. The cheater's script. "You drove me to this. You didn't meet my needs." I'd heard it from friends, seen it on TV, never dreaming I'd be its audience. The sheer, unoriginal banality of her betrayal was its own fresh insult. I walked toward her. She took a step back, hitting the wall. I didn't stop until I was close enough to see the tiny, unfamiliar glitter on her eyelids. To smell him on her skin. In that moment, any love I had left curdled. It didn't turn to sorrow. It turned to a pure, crystalline hatred. It was a chemical change, instantaneous and total. The woman before me was not my wife. My wife was gone, killed by this imposter. "Get out of my way," I said, my voice a low whisper. "Where are you going?" "To the guest room. Tomorrow, I will contact a lawyer. We are getting a divorce. You will arrange for an STD test. I will do the same. Do not speak to me unless it is about the children or the dissolution of our assets. You are no longer my wife. You are a legal adversary and a threat to my financial and emotional well-being. Treat me as such." I walked past her. I didn't look back. I went upstairs, pulled spare sheets and a blanket from the linen closet, and made up the bed in the pale blue guest room that had housed her mother, my brother, a never-ending parade of kids after sleepovers. It smelled of potpourri and disuse. I closed the door. I did not cry. I lay in the dark, and I planned. The numbness was setting in, a blessed anesthetic over the raw nerve. Hat rage had given me resolve. Now, resolve would give me a blueprint. The next morning, I awoke at 5:30 a.m., as always. The habit of 17 years was stronger than heartbreak. I showered in the hall bathroom, dressed in the guest room. When I came downstairs, Kayla was at the kitchen table in her robe, clutching a mug of coffee. Her eyes were puffy, red. She looked small, wrecked. A part of me, a deep, primal part, wanted to go to her, to ask what was wrong, to fix it. That part was a ghost. I ignored it. "The kids will be up in an hour," I said, my voice even, businesslike. "I suggest we tell them together that we are separating. I will say it is due to irreconcilable differences. If you attempt to blame me or justify your actions, I will tell them, in explicit detail, why their mother is no longer living in the master bedroom. Do you understand?" She looked at me with sheer terror. She had expected tears, pleading, maybe a fight. She had not expected this cold, procedural dismantling. She nodded, mute. Carly, at 16, was all sharp edges and simmering drama. Josh, 14, lived inside a bubble of video games and soccer. They took the news with stunned silence over their cereal. "What does that mean?" Josh asked, his voice cracking. "It means your mother and I will be living in separate parts of the house for now," I said. "We both love you very much. This is about us, not you." Carly's eyes, so like Kayla's, darted between us. "Who's moving out?" "No one is, immediately," I said. "We need to figure things out." "This is so stupid," Carly muttered, shoving her bowl away. "My friend's parents did this. It's so cliché." That was Monday. On Tuesday, I called 3 divorce lawyers from my office. I hired Eleanor Vance, a sharp, unsentimental woman in her 50s with a reputation for being a pit bull. "First," she said, "open a separate bank account. Move half of all liquid assets. Today. Cancel all joint credit cards. Document everything. Is the house in both names?" "Yes." "Start looking for places to live. You don't want to be the one who leaves the marital home, but you also don't want to stay in a war zone. A clean break is often best for custody." Custody. The word was a knife. My children. I did it all. That evening, I presented Kayla with a printed list of our joint accounts and suggested a fair split. She cried. "You're just dismantling us. Like we're a business." "We were a business," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "A domestic and financial partnership. You breached the contract. Now we liquidate." The coldness was my armor. Without it, I would have dissolved into a puddle of grief on the floor. I focused on the tasks, spreadsheets, lists, real estate listings for cramped apartments I could barely afford with child support and alimony looming. I demanded the STD test results via text. She sent a PDF a week later, clean. I sent her mine. The atmosphere in the house was arctic. We communicated via terse notes on the fridge or blunt texts. "Josh needs cleats. Carly's conference is Thursday. I'll be home late." The kids moved through the house like startled deer. Carly became sullen and spent more time in her room or at friends. Josh started asking to sleep over at buddies' houses more often. I knew they were fleeing the Cold War, but I couldn't stop. To thaw was to acknowledge the pain, and the pain was a bottomless ocean I dared not enter. Kayla, after her initial shock, began to fight back. Not with warmth, but with manipulation. She became the wounded bird in front of the children. I'd hear her in the kitchen with Carly, voice thick with tears. "I just wanted to feel like a person again. Your father has shut me out for so long, he's so cold now." She never mentioned Clarence. Never mentioned the date. She framed it as my emotional abandonment leading to her seeking friendship, and my overreaction destroying the family. One night, 3 weeks in, Carly confronted me as I was loading the dishwasher. "Why are you being such a dick to Mom?" I straightened up. "This is between your mother and me, Carly. She's miserable. She cries all the time. You just sit in your cave of an office or hide in the guest room. You won't even try. There is no try, I said, the word sounding hollow even to me. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. So you're just giving up? On us, too? Her eyes were blazing. Never on you. Never on Josh. This has nothing to do with my love for you too. It feels like it has everything to do with us, she shouted, and stormed off. That was the beginning of the alienation. Kayla's narrative was potent, simple, and perfectly tailored to a teenager's worldview. Dad is mean. Dad gave up. Dad is punishing Mom for wanting to be happy. Dad is making us choose. I tried to counter it. I took Josh for burgers and tried to explain, in age-appropriate terms, about trust and betrayal. He fiddled with his straw wrapper. Mom said you hate her now. I don't hate her. I just can't be married to someone who broke her promises. She said it was just one dinner. Was it really that bad? The one dinner lie. Kayla had polished it into a gleaming, innocent artifact. My insistence on the truth made me look paranoid, cruel. I was trapped. If I told a 14-year-old the full, sordid truth about his mother's infidelity to defend myself, I'd be the monster who poisoned his image of her. If I didn't, I was the villain who blew up the family over one dinner. Kayla had crafted a perfect checkmate. The divorce proceedings were a soul-grinding parade of humiliation and rage. Mediation was a farce. Kayla, coached by her own lawyer, a slick, smarmy guy named Derek, played the devastated homemaker, the primary caregiver whose earning potential was forever stunted by her sacrifice for the family. She produced spreadsheets of her contributions, photos of her with the kids at school events I'd missed because of business trips that had paid for the house, the cars, their college funds. I was framed as the emotionally distant workaholic, the cold financier who now wanted to discard his loyal wife. My coldness post-betrayal was used as evidence of my inherent coldness. My demand for an STD test was presented as a degrading, controlling act. Clarence was never mentioned. He was the ghost in the room, the friend whose existence was irrelevant to the breakdown of marital communication. Eleanor fought hard. We have proof of infidelity, she argued. It changes the financial and custodial landscape. Derek waved a hand. A single, innocuous dinner between colleagues, which my client admits was a mistake in judgment, driven by the profound loneliness she felt in her marriage. That's not infidelity. That's a cry for help that Mr. Lawson ignored. The mediator, a weary-looking man, seemed to buy it. The system, I learned, wasn't built for justice. It was built for formulaic division, and the formula often favored the spouse who earned less, regardless of why. Adultery was a quaint, almost archaic concept unless you could prove it cost marital funds or endangered children. In the end, I was gutted. Kayla got the house. She got primary physical custody, with me having the kids every other weekend and one dinner a week. She got hefty child support based on my income. She got alimony for 7 years. I got my 401k, which had taken a hit in the market, my car, and a buyout for half the equity in the house, equity I couldn't access until she refinanced or sold, which she had no intention of doing. I was ordered to pay a large portion of her legal fees. I walked out of the courthouse on a bright, sunny Tuesday feeling like a ghost. I had lost my wife, my home, half my wealth, and, it seemed, my children. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex that smelled of microwave popcorn and bleach. The walls were thin. I could hear my neighbor's TV. My first night there, I sat on the floor, back against the wall, and finally, the numbness broke. The sobs that came out of me were ugly, wrenching, animal things. They tore from a place so deep I didn't know I possessed it. I cried for the lost years, for the future I'd pictured, college graduations, weddings, grandkids, growing old with Kayla on a porch somewhere. I cried for the bedtime stories I wouldn't read to Josh anymore, for the boy talk I'd miss. I cried for Carly, who looked at me now with such contempt. I cried for my own stupidity, my blindness. I cried until I was hollow, until there was nothing left but a dry, aching exhaustion. The next 2 years were a grey trek through a featureless landscape. My job as a mid-level manager at a logistics firm became a lifeless routine. My apartment was a waystation, not a home. My time with the kids was strained, awkward, and dictated by Kayla's schedule. She had moved Clarence into the house on Elmwood Drive 6 months after the divorce was final. The photos started appearing on social media, Clarence and Josh at a soccer game. Clarence and Carly making pancakes. My family, with me photoshopped out and a younger, cooler model inserted. The caption on one group photo, "My beautiful, blended family. So blessed." I threw my phone across the room. Josh, still malleable, began to call Clarence Claire Bear sometimes, a nickname Kayla had invented. He'd talk about the new gaming system Claire had helped him set up. The pain was a physical puncture each time. Carly was openly hostile. She cancelled our dinners, forgot my weekends. When I showed up, she'd be on her phone the entire time, giving monosyllabic answers. "How's school?" "Fine." "Still seeing that Bobby kid?" "Yeah." "He treating you okay?" "God, Dad, stop interrogating me." I tried. I really tried. I went to her volleyball games, but she'd look past me into the stands where Kayla, Clarence, and Josh sat together, a perfect unit. I was a ghost in their world. The final, brutal blow came from my own parents. I'd always been closer to my dad, a retired engineer, a man of few words but steady presence. My mom was a talker, the social glue. I went to their house for Sunday dinner, a monthly tradition since the divorce, hoping for a shred of unconditional support. After dessert, my mom cleared her throat. "Tom, honey, we need to talk about Thanksgiving." "Okay," I said, a flicker of hope rising. Maybe they wanted me to come early, to help. "It's just." Kayla called. "She's having it at the house. For the children's sake, she wants to keep traditions stable. Clarence's family will be there too. She invited us." The hope curdled. "And you're going?" My dad wouldn't meet my eyes. My mom fiddled with her napkin. "Tom, she's the mother of our grandchildren. She's keeping the family home together. It's easier for the kids if we're all civil." "Civil?" "She betrayed me. She destroyed our family. She took my kids and turned them against me. And you're choosing her Thanksgiving?" My voice was rising, trembling. "She told us her side, Tom," my mom said gently, painfully. "About how lonely she was. How you were never there. She said that date was just a desperate mistake, and you just shut down. Refused counseling. Went straight for the divorce. She said you've been using the children as pawns." I stared at them, my mouth agape. The rewriting of history was complete. Kayla had not just won the present, she had colonized the past and recruited my own army. "So that's it?" I whispered. "You believe her?" "We don't want to take sides," my dad said, finally looking at me. His eyes were sad, but resolute. "But the grandkids are there. That's where we need to be." "Taking her side is taking a side," I said, standing up so fast my chair screeched. "If you go there, you are telling me that my pain, my betrayal, doesn't matter. You are telling Carly and Josh that what she did was okay, because even Grandma and Grandpa are there, smiling next to the man she left me for." "Tom, please don't make a scene," my mom pleaded. "I'm not making a scene. I'm leaving." I walked out of my childhood home, and I didn't look back. The isolation was now total. No wife, no home, strained relations with my children, and now, no parents. I was a man in a lifeboat, watching the ship of his former life sail away, full of everyone he loved, laughing and waving as if he were a stranger on the shore. The depth of that loneliness changes you. It either breaks you completely or forges you into something new, something harder and more self-reliant. For a long time, I teetered on the brink of breaking. I drank too much cheap whiskey on too many empty nights. I dated a few times, pathetic, stumbling encounters with women who sensed the damage and fled. I was a ghost in my own life. But slowly, imperceptibly at first, a different impulse began to stir. It wasn't hope. It was defiance. A sheer, stubborn refusal to let Kayla and Clarence be the authors of my entire story. If my life was a blank page, then I, damn it, would write something on it. The catalyst was a for sale sign. A rundown, 1970s-era split level on the other side of town, in a neighborhood that was slowly being rediscovered by young families. It was ugly, brown siding, overgrown shrubs, a mossy roof. The price was low because it was a handyman special. I'd always been good with my hands. My dad and I had built a treehouse, repaired cars. In my marriage, I'd been the fixer of leaky faucets and sticky drawers. Now, I needed something big to fix. I drained what was left of my savings after the legal buyout, secured a painful mortgage, and bought the house. The day I got the keys, I walked through the empty, musty rooms. I saw past the stained carpets and peeling wallpaper. I saw space. Potential. A project that demanded everything I had: physical sweat, mental focus, financial resourcefulness. It would be a prison of labor or a temple of redemption. I chose the latter. I started with demolition. It was profoundly therapeutic. Swinging a sledgehammer into a moldy kitchen cabinet was an exorcism. Tearing up foul carpet was like stripping away the soiled layers of my past. I worked every night after my day job, and all day on weekends when I didn't have the kids. The physical exhaustion was a gift, it left no room for thinking, for mourning. My body ached in new, clean ways. My hands grew calloused. I learned from YouTube videos and books. I taught myself to rewire outlets, to hang drywall, to lay tile. The house began to transform. The ugly brown siding was replaced with crisp white board and batten. The overgrown yard was tamed into a garden. I salvaged an old, solid wood door from a salvage yard and refinished it to become my new front door. Every nail hammered, every brushstroke of paint, was a reclamation of myself. The financial buyout from the Elmwood Drive house finally came through when Kayla refinanced to put Clarence's name on the deed. It was a decent chunk of money. Instead of hoarding it, I used a portion to finally pursue a passion I'd shelved since college: cars. Not just any cars, but classic American muscle. I'd always loved the rumble of a V8, the simple, brutal mechanics of it. I bought a non-running, rusted-out 1969 Chevrolet Camaro SS project car for a song. It became my second therapy session, in the garage I'd built alongside the house. 2 years into my exile, 3 years after the click, I was a different man. Thinner, harder, quieter. The house was livable, even beautiful in a rugged, honest way. The Camaro was a rolling chassis, its engine rebuilt and waiting to be dropped in. I had a life, solitary but structured. The pain was still there, but it was a familiar scar, not a fresh wound. It was my friend Greg, from work, who dragged me out of my shell. There's a car show Sunday at the fairgrounds. Hundreds of classics. You need to get out of that garage and breathe some gasoline fumes with living people. I resisted, but he was persistent. That Sunday, I went. The fairgrounds were a sea of gleaming chrome and vibrant paint, the air thick with the smell of oil, gasoline, and popcorn. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of uncomplicated joy. I wandered among the rows, talking to owners, admiring restorations. I was leaning over the fender of a pristine '57 Bel Air, discussing carburetor setups with its elderly owner, when I heard a voice beside me. "He's wrong about the vacuum secondary, you know." I turned. A woman was standing there, maybe a few years younger than me, with warm brown eyes and a smile that seemed to hold a secret. She wore jeans, a simple t-shirt, and had grease under her fingernail. She was holding a paper plate with a half-eaten funnel cake. "Excuse me?" I said. "The carburetor. He's running a Holly double pumper, which is great for the strip, but for a street-driven car like this, a vacuum secondary would give you better drivability and mileage. Less bog off the line." She took a bite of funnel cake, utterly nonchalant. The Bel Air's owner harumphed. "Young lady, I've been building engines since before you were born." "I believe it," she said, her smile not fading. "And the technology has improved since then. No offense." She winked at me and started to walk away. I was intrigued. I caught up to her a few rows over. "How do you know so much about carbs?" She stopped, looked me up and down. "My dad was a mechanic. I was his son. Spent my childhood under hoods. I restore cars for a living now. Marie." She offered a cleanish hand. "Tom." We shook. Her grip was firm. "What do you drive?" "A '78 Ford Bronco I'm restoring. It's over there." She pointed to a lifted, olive-green beast with oversized tires. It was badass. "You." '69 Camaro SS. In pieces in my garage. A long-term project. "The best kind," she said, her eyes lighting up. We talked cars for 20 minutes straight. It was the easiest, most natural conversation I'd had in a decade. There was no subtext of pity, no probing about my past. Just carburetors, compression ratios, and the merits of MIG versus TIG welding. We got coffee from a vendor and walked some more. The conversation eventually drifted, as it does. She asked if I had kids. I gave the shorthand version: 2 teenagers, live mostly with their mom. She nodded, a shadow passing over her face. "I have one. Jenny. She's 12. Lives with me full-time. Her dad. Ex-husband," she said, her voice tightening just a fraction. "Turns out, for better or worse, didn't include his 23-year-old assistant." She said it with a wry, pained smile that told me she'd done her own time in the trenches of betrayal. We didn't need to say more. A quiet understanding passed between us, a recognition of shared scars. We exchanged numbers. A week later, I asked her out for a proper dinner. It was awkward and wonderful. We talked about our broken pasts, but also about our hopes, for our kids, for our projects, for a life that wasn't defined by what had been taken from us. Marie had a gentle strength about her. She was resilient without being hard, kind without being naive. She had rebuilt her life too, starting her own small auto restoration business from her garage. Jenny was a revelation. A sharp, witty, fiercely loyal kid with her mother's eyes and a head full of engineering curiosity. The first time I came over for dinner, she grilled me about the Camaro's suspension setup. I brought over my shop manual, and we spent an hour at the table drawing diagrams. She didn't see me as a sad divorce or a replacement for anything. She saw me as Tom, who knew about cars. With Marie, things progressed with a slow, careful tenderness. We were both gun-shy, our trust muscles atrophied. There were no grand gestures, just a gradual accumulation of shared moments, quiet dinners, working side by side in her garage, watching bad movies, holding hands in the dark. She was the calm after the storm. With her, I didn't need the armor. I could be sad, or quiet, or angry about the past, and she'd just listen, or squeeze my hand, or tell a stupid joke to make me smile. One night, about a year after we met, I was at her place. Jenny was at a friend's. We were on the couch, and I was telling her about a particularly brutal phone call with Carly, who had yelled at me for forgetting to sign a permission slip that Kayla had never told me about. The old, helpless anger was rising in my throat. Marie listened quietly, then took my face in her hands. "Tom," she said softly. "You have to stop letting them live rent-free in your head. Kayla. Clarence. Even the kids, for now. You have built a good life. You have this beautiful house you made with your hands. You have a project car that's almost done. You have, me. And Jenny, who adores you. That is your family. Right now. Let that be enough until the rest can see what they're missing. She kissed me. And in that moment, I let go. I let go of the desperate need for vindication from my children. I let go of the haunting image of the house on Elmwood Drive. I accepted that my family, for now, was this woman, this girl, and the home we were building together. It was a conscious choice, and it brought a peace deeper than any I'd known since before the click. Marie and I got married a year later in my backyard, under a birch tree I'd planted myself. It was simple. Greg was my best man. Jenny was the flower girl and gave a speech that made everyone cry. My parents weren't there. Carly and Josh weren't there. It hurt, but the hurt was acknowledged and then set aside. The joy was too big, too real, to be overshadowed. Jenny started calling me Tom, then, hey Tom, then, one day completely unprompted, Dad. It slipped out while we were arguing about the best way to bleed brake lines. We both stopped. She blushed. I felt my eyes well up. You can call me that, I said, my voice thick. I'd be honored. She nodded, and we went back to arguing, but everything had changed. I had a daughter again. A fierce, brilliant, car-obsessed daughter who drew me Father's Day cards and asked for my advice on boys and geometry. It healed a part of me I thought was permanently broken. 5 years passed. Good years. Full years. My relationship with Josh had slowly, tentatively improved. He'd started coming over on some of my weekends, intrigued by the Camaro, which was now a roaring, fire-engine red beast. He'd help me tinker, and we'd talk, about school, about soccer, about his vague plans for community college. He never mentioned Clarence much, and when he did, it was just him, not Claire Bear. The brainwashing was wearing off with age and distance. He saw I wasn't a monster. I was just Dad, in a different house. Carly, however, remained a fortress. She was in her mid-20s now, living with her longtime boyfriend, Bobby. She was a paralegal, sharp and severe. Our interactions were limited to stiff birthday texts and the occasional guilt-driven Christmas visit where she'd spend the whole time on her phone. Kayla's narrative had fossilized in her. I was the villain. I had given up. I had chosen divorce over family. I had abandoned them. The fact that I had a new wife and a stepdaughter only cemented her view. I had easily replaced them. Then, the call came. It was a Thursday evening. Marie and I were prepping dinner. Jenny, now a vibrant 17-year-old, was setting the table. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hello? Dad? It was Carly. Her voice was formal, strained. My heart did a complicated flip. Carly. Hi. This is a surprise. I need to talk to you about something. About my wedding. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Marie looked over, concerned. I gave her a tight smile. Okay. You and Bobby finally set a date. October 12th. At the Willow Creek Manor. That's wonderful, Carly. Congratulations. The words felt strange in my mouth. I was happy for her, but it was a distant, abstract happiness, like being happy for a character in a movie. Thanks. Look, Bobby and we've been planning. And we've talked a lot about the ceremony. About the traditions. A cold trickle of dread started in my stomach. Okay. Bobby's dad is walking his mom down the aisle. And for me, well, Mom has been through so much. She's been my rock. And Clarence, he's been there for me, Dad. Since I was a kid. He's been a real father figure. The words hung in the air, each one a small, precise bullet. A real father figure. What are you saying, Carly? She took a deep breath, audible over the line. I'm saying I want Clarence to walk me down the aisle. And I want you to be okay with it. I want you to come to the wedding, of course, but, in a regular guest capacity. This is what would make the day feel right for me. The silence that followed was profound. I could hear my own blood pounding in my ears. I saw Marie's hand go to her mouth. Jenny had stopped setting the table and was staring at me, her eyes wide. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You are asking my permission for the man who had an affair with your mother, the man who helped break up our family, to take the place of your father in giving you away at your wedding. It's not like that, she snapped, the formality breaking. You always make it so black and white. Mom was unhappy. You were checked out. Clarence made her happy. He's been a good stepdad to me. You were the one who filed the papers. You were the one who left. The old, tired script. But hearing it from my adult daughter, on the eve of her wedding, broke something loose in me. The armor of peace I'd built shattered. I did not leave. I roared, making both Marie and Jenny jump. I was pushed out. I was betrayed. I came home from work every day for 17 years and provided for that family. I loved your mother. I loved you. That man did not make her happy, he helped her destroy a marriage. He is not your father. I am. And the fact that you can't see that, after all these years, after everything, that is the greatest betrayal of all. I was crying now, hot, angry tears. You want him to walk you down the aisle? Fine. You have my permission. Do what you want. But I will not be there to watch it. I will not sit in a chair and smile while the man who fucked my wife while I was still married to her plays father of the bride. I have a limit, Carly. And this is it. So you're choosing your pride over your own daughter's wedding, she screamed, her voice cracking with tears of her own. No. You are choosing your mother's lie over your father's love. You have been choosing it for 10 years. Enjoy your wedding, Carly. I hope Clarence gives a lovely speech. I hung up. I threw the phone onto the couch. It bounced onto the floor. The silence in my kitchen was absolute. Then I sank to the floor, my back against the cabinets, and wept. Not the silent tears of a broken man, but the ragged, angry sobs of a father whose child had just driven the final nail into the coffin of their relationship. Marie came and sat beside me, holding me, saying nothing. Jenny stood frozen, her face pale with shock and a growing, furious understanding. Later that night, after I'd cried myself out, after Marie had led me to bed and held me until a fitful sleep took me, Jenny did something. She went into her room, closed the door, and found Carly's number on an old family group text still lurking in her phone. She called it. From what she told me later, the conversation was brutal. Carly answered, her voice thick. Hello. Carly, it's Jenny. Tom's stepdaughter. A pause, dripping with disdain. What do you want? I want you to know what a selfish, horrible person you are. Excuse me. You have no right, I have every right. Jenny shot back, her voice trembling with a fury she'd inherited from her mother. I just watched my dad, because he is my dad in every way that matters, crumple into pieces because of you. I listened to him sob. Do you have any idea what you've done? He did it to himself. He's always been dramatic. Dramatic? Jenny laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Let me tell you a story, Carly. A story your mother has probably kept from you. Did you know that the night of the one dinner, your dad sat in the dark waiting for her? That when she came home smelling like another man's cologne, he asked her point blank if she'd slept with him, and she refused to answer. That she told him he didn't own her. That your dad moved into the guest room that same night and filed for divorce because the woman he loved had turned into a stranger. Silence on the other end. Your dad, Jenny pressed, her voice cracking, didn't abandon you. He was slaughtered. Your mother took a knife to his heart and then handed you the handle and told you to twist it. And you did. For 10 years, you've been twisting it. He rebuilt his life from nothing. He built a house with his own hands. He loves my mom, and he loves me, and he has never stopped loving you or Josh. He talks about you all the time. He has photos of you as a kid in his workshop. He cries on your birthday. And you call him up and ask if the man who was fucking your mom while she was still married can have the honor of walking you down the aisle. What is wrong with you? You don't know anything about my family, Carly whispered, but the defiance was gone. It was a weak, watery protest. I know your dad. And I know he's a better man than you deserve. If you go through with this, you will regret it for the rest of your life. You will have chosen the liar over the truth-teller. The homewrecker over the father. And you will have lost a father who would have moved heaven and earth for you, if you'd just given him a chance. Goodbye, Carly. I hope your wedding is perfect. Jenny hung up. She came out of her room, her eyes red, and told Marie and me what she'd done the next morning. I was stunned. Angry at first that she'd interfered, then overwhelmed by a love so fierce it stole my breath. This girl, who owed me nothing, had fought for me with the loyalty of a lioness. I shouldn't have, she said, looking down. It was your business. I couldn't listen to her hurt you anymore. I pulled her into a hug. You are my daughter, I whispered. And you have more courage in your little finger than I've had in my whole body. We heard nothing from Carly for a week. Then too. The wedding date loomed. I assumed it was proceeding as planned. I mourned it privately, a deep, resigned grief. I had drawn my line. I would not go. The morning of October 12th was unseasonably warm and bright. Marie and Jenny tried to distract me with a trip to the flea market, but I was a ghost. My mind was at Willow Creek Manor. I pictured Carly in her dress. I pictured Clarence in a tux, offering his arm. I pictured Kayla, smug, triumphant, having fully erased me. The images were torture. At precisely 2 p.m., the time the ceremony was to begin, I was in my garage, pointlessly polishing the Camaro. My phone buzzed. It was Josh. Dad. His voice was urgent, weird. Are you watching? Watching what? Carly's wedding. She's streaming it on Facebook Live. Something's happening. My hands went cold. I fumbled with my phone, found the link Josh texted. Marie and Jenny crowded around. The video was shaky, professional grade. It showed the interior of a tastefully decorated barn venue. Rows of guests. An altar strewn with sunflowers. Bobby stood there, looking pale and confused. The wedding march was playing. And there was Carly. She was breathtakingly beautiful in a simple lace gown. She was walking down the aisle. But she wasn't on Clarence's arm. She was alone. Her face was a mask of turmoil, her eyes red and swollen even from a distance. She walked with a stiff, deliberate pace. She reached the altar. The music faded. The officiant, a woman, smiled nervously. Who presents this woman to be married to this man? The camera panned. Clarence, looking handsome and expectant in a gray suit, stood up from the front row, next to Kayla, who was beaming. He took a step forward. I do, Carly said, her voice surprisingly clear and strong into the microphone. I present myself. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Clarence froze, half out of his seat. Kayla's smile vanished. Carly turned to face the audience. She took the microphone from the stunned officiant. I'm sorry, she said, her voice trembling but gaining volume. I can't do this. Not like this. Before I say my vows to Bobby, I have to say some truths. She took a shuddering breath, her eyes scanning the crowd, landing on her mother. For 10 years, I have believed a story. A story that my father, Tom Lawson, was a cold, unfeeling man who abandoned our family because he was too proud to forgive my mother for one mistake. The audience was stone silent. Bobby was staring at her, awestruck. That story is a lie. The words hung in the air. The one mistake was not a dinner. It was an affair. A prolonged, secret affair with a man my mother worked with. She turned her gaze directly to Clarence, who had gone ashen. With you, Clarence. It started before she left my father. It was the reason she left. Kayla shot to her feet. Carly, stop this. This is your wedding. No, Mom. This is where it stops. Carly shouted, the years of pent-up confusion and manipulation boiling over. You lied to me. You lied to Josh. You lied to Grandma and Grandpa. You made me hate my own father to cover up your guilt. You told me he refused counseling, when you were the one sleeping with another man. You told me he was using us as pawns, when you were the one whispering poison in our ears every day. Tears were streaming down her face now, her makeup smearing. I got a phone call. From a girl who barely knows me. My stepsister, Jenny. And she shamed me. She told me the truth my own mother was too selfish to tell. And she was right. I have been a coward. I have been a blind, hateful fool. She looked back at Bobby, her expression crumbling into apology. Bobby, I love you. But I cannot start our life with this lie between me and my family. I cannot let this man, she pointed at Clarence, who helped destroy my first family, pretend to give me a way to start my new one. And I cannot let my father's seat be empty when he is the one who deserved to be here all along. She looked directly into the camera then, as if she could see me through the lens. Her voice broke into a whisper everyone could hear. Dad, if you're watching. I am so sorry. I was a kid, and then I was a stubborn, brainwashed idiot. I betrayed you. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm stopping the lie. Right now. She handed the microphone back to the officiant, gathered the skirts of her dress, and walked back up the aisle, alone, her head held high. The video feed cut to chaos, guests standing, murmuring, Kayla collapsing into sobs, Clarence looking around in stunned humiliation, before it went black. We stood in my garage, the three of us, in stunned silence. Jenny was crying silently. Marie had her hand over her heart. I was leaning against the Camaro for support, my legs weak. My phone rang again. It was Carly. With shaking hands, I answered. Hello. Her voice was raw, ragged, but clear. Dad? I'm here, honey. I'm coming over, with Bobby. Is that okay? Yes, I said, the word choked. The door is open. They arrived 20 minutes later. Carly was still in her wedding dress, a coat thrown over it. Bobby, shell-shocked but supportive, had his arm around her. She walked into my living room and stopped, looking at me, at Marie, at Jenny. Her face was a ruin of mascara and emotion. She didn't say anything. She just walked over to me and collapsed into my arms, sobbing great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I held her, this woman who was my little girl, and I cried too. I cried for the lost decade. I cried for her pain. I cried for the incredible, terrifying courage she had just shown. I'm sorry, Daddy, she whispered, the childhood name I hadn't heard in 15 years. I'm so sorry. I believed her. I was so stupid. You were a child, I murmured into her hair. Then you were lost. You're found now. That's all that matters. We talked for hours. She told me everything. The constant, subtle drip of poison from Kayla. The way Kayla would cry and play the victim whenever my name came up. The way she'd framed Clarence as the savior who came after the tyrant left. Carly confessed her own shame, her pride, her fear of admitting she'd been wrong for so long. Jenny's call, she said, was the detonator. It forced her to question everything. She'd confronted Kayla, who had exploded in defensive rage, confirming every terrible suspicion. She'd found old emails, credit card statements for hotels, the proof she'd never wanted to look for. I had to do it in public, she said, wiping her eyes. I had to burn it down so there was no going back to the lie. I had to make sure she could never rewrite it again. Bobby, quiet and kind, held her hand. I love her, he said simply. And today, I saw how brave she is. We'll get married. When the time is right. Carly looked at me, her eyes pleading. Will you walk me down the aisle, Dad? When we do it for real? I took her face in my hands. There is nothing in this world I would love more. 1 year later, almost to the day, I did. It was a smaller, warmer ceremony in a garden. Josh was my groomsman. Marie and Jenny beamed from the front row. My parents were there, hesitant and apologetic. The rift was not fully healed, but a bridge was being built. And as I walked my beautiful, courageous daughter down a petal-strewn path, her hand tucked firmly in the crook of my arm, I felt a circle close. The lost had been found. The broken had been mended, not to its original shape, but into something new, stronger at the seams. As for Kayla, her downfall was not theatrical, but quiet and total. Clarence left her within months of the wedding scandal. The truth of their long affair, publicly exposed, eroded the blended family fantasy. He didn't want the baggage of a woman whose own children now reviled her. Josh moved in with me full-time for his last year of high school. Carly's relationship with her mother became cordial but distant, more like a cautious acquaintance than a daughter. Kayla sold the house on Elmwood Drive, the memories too poisoned. She moved into a small apartment. Her reputation in our old social circle was shattered. The woman who had played the victim so masterfully was now seen, clearly, as the architect of her own ruin. I felt no triumph in it, only a faint, sad pity. The revenge was not in her downfall, but in my peace. The story ends here, in my backyard, many years later. The Camaro is long finished, a weekend cruiser. The fixer-upper is a warm, lived-in home, filled with the sounds of family. Marie is beside me on the porch swing, her head on my shoulder. In the yard, Jenny, now a mechanical engineer, is teaching my grandson, Carly's little boy, how to change the oil in his toy truck. Josh and his wife are setting up the grill. Carly and Bobby are chasing their toddler, her laughter echoing the laughter I remember from a little girl in pigtails a lifetime ago. The pain of the past is a remembered country, distant and no longer threatening. The love of the present is a tangible warmth, like the late afternoon sun on my face. I lost a family born of naive young love and broken promises. I built a family forged in resilience, choice, and hard-won truth. The journey from the quiet click of a closing door to this contented silence on a porch swing was 30,000 words long, and every one of them was worth it. I am Tom Lawson. I was broken. I was rebuilt. I am, finally, and completely, at peace.